Hello, everybody. My name is Coach Lee. I'm a social connections coach. I want to help you make more meaningful connections in your personal and professional life. And today I'm here just by myself. Nah, that's a lie. There's somebody back here that's going to help me. We're going to have a great conversation about confidence. This is a special thing. I normally don't go live at this time on this day. You can see that this way. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays on social media about social connections. But I have a guest here today and I just wanted to make sure that you got so much value from this conversation that we're about to have. I wanted to bring it directly to you, directly to you. And so, do you want to know who I have here? Of course you do. But I'm going to keep you waiting. I'm not. I'm not. I promise. I promise. I promise. There's something great here. My guest today is Nita Agustin. And they go by, she goes by, they, them, and she, her. Those are their pronouns. She is they are your neighborhood friendly LGBTQ therapist. Even though I belong to the community, it doesn't mean that I can say it so quickly and easily. And they're based in Burnaby, British Columbia. That's in Canada. I know most of you who are watching me, you're probably seeing me on from American soil or whatnot. But welcome from wherever you are. Please let us know where you're seeing me from in the chat too. I'd love to hear from you to spark this conversation, to start this conversation. I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing. She's a LGBTQ therapist, and she is absolutely phenomenal. She's known as the Spunky Counselor, and she's here to tell her story about how she became a therapist and her journey with being a queer person in not queer spaces, and how she decided that she was going to be a therapist, as well as talking about some of those things that you can do to build your confidence, because she and I have gone through quite a process, and I'd like to hear more about her process, and she's more qualified to talk about it from a therapeutic point of view. So, you ready to bring her out? I'm ready. I'm ready. I think she's nodding over there. She's ready, ready, ready. All right, let's bring her out. Yay! Welcome. Welcome.
Yay!
I know. We're gonna have a good time. I have that kind of energy, and you have that kind of energy. We're gonna have a great conversation about community, of course, and confidence. So finding your confidence is our topic here today. So everyone knows, I think everyone knows. I don't know if everyone knows about me, but I'm a social connections coach to help people make more meaningful connections. What do you do?
Yeah, actually, thank you so much, Lee, for having me today. And hello, everyone. My name is Nita, and I'm a licensed clinical counselor based in Canada, in the western part of the country, like on the same coastline as California and Oregon, for those of you who are in the US soil. And my jam is working with youth and young adults, any folks between the ages of 8 to around 30, in the area of personal identity and self exploration. And I help youth to figure out what it means to be them, who they are, and who they want to be.
That's really concise, because who they are and who they want to be. And for so many years I had no idea who I was. So how could I even say what I want to be? And I have to tell you that it reminds me of when I was in school. They would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up?" I don't know. I don't know what I want to be. I don't even know who I am yet. And it's a trap. It's a trap.
I I used to hate that question because I felt the need to have to figure it out faster. Because like I felt almost stupid if I just like blurted out like my fantasy or like like my ideas because I don't want to sound dumb, like to my peers. So I often just say like, oh yeah, like I want to be a singer or a songwriter, whatever that other people are also saying, even though it did not necessarily like align with me on the inside, I guess.
Yeah, it's just whatever people have said. is what you might pick up. That's what happened to me. Whatever people say, oh, you might be good at this, you might be good at that. It's like, well, I guess maybe people are saying, I don't really know, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it, or I'm gonna say it at the very least. And some people spend so much time and energy focused on what they think other people think they should be, rather than identifying with themselves. And so I hear you say that you work with young adults from 8 to 30, three
Yeah.
zero.
Mhm.
That's quite a range of life experience and so forth. To Do you find that it's the same with this gender or sexuality identification of self that happens in both those people in the beginning of the spectrum, or the beginning of your age group and the end of your age group?
Like the topics itself, it is around similar things like personal identity, self exploration, though the kind of points or issues that pop up in different age group are kind of somewhat different. And I would actually say that is the most interesting thing that I learned actually along the way, because I started off working with the like around like high school and university students, and I thought, yeah, like I vibe really well with youth, because I noticed this running theme of, yeah, like people wanting to figure out different aspects of their personal identity. Though along the way, and I'm not sure how much of it is like the law of attraction, because recently the kind of clientele that has come through the door, my newer intakes, I mean, within this past year also has been younger. And
Oh,
eight was actually the youngest. And even then, actually, like during the consultation with the parent, I made it really clear that I am not a play therapist, like I'm a talk therapist. That's my jam. Like, of course, I am able to incorporate some games or like play this and that, but I will not go as far as marketing myself as a play therapist.
okay. And
Yeah.
and so the young people that come to your office to get therapy from you, they are a bit more mature and understanding them because it's not quite play. Then how do you handle that?
She's from Talkie Talkie, to be honest, and I just noticed like I show up differently as well, because like for folks who are like, I don't want to say, like, I would say in general, like folks after the ages of like 12, like after people develop like reasonings and stuff, like, I mean, if we're talking biology, it's when our frontal lobe, which is like the part in our body that is in charge of our like thinking and executive functioning, that's when it kind of like started to develop. And we're not saying that younger folks are incapable of that, though I would just say like it's different. And
Hmm.
like, unlike if I were to meet with like, like teenagers, then, or like, 15, 18 and above, then I feel like we can sort of get into the issue. But I feel like with younger folks, it's just more so like different approach. Like I will
Yeah.
focus on like building rapport first, and I might ask about like, hey, like who are your friends? Like tell me your favorite colors. Tell me a bit about mommy and daddy, how things are at home, like.
Uh-huh.
And I might ask similar essence of a questions, but I will word it differently.
Okay, that's similar essence of tell me who you are, what your experiences are, and you kind of shrink it down to the 8-year-old's life experiences, what's going on with them, building that rapport. That's really how you make a connection with anybody in the first place. And then you can go on and share the knowledge or information that you have that can support and guide them. Yeah.
Exactly. And over time, actually, what has helped the most is also during phone consult, any contact with parents. I always say this, like just to like level out or manage expectation, because yeah, like parents might want me to meet up with the kiddo to like navigate issue ABC. Though, like,
Hmm.
unlike with older folks, where it's like, okay, like I am the one making the decision to want to see a therapist because of I want to talk about issue ABC. Like, kids don't function like that. So, more often than not, actually, like I might not touch the issue until like session 3 or 4.
Right, right. So it's different for those two groups of people, but still the same and the similar things to talk about or similar experiences to talk about. So then Um, I know I completely skipped this part because I was so interested in the fact that you do this kind of work. It didn't exist widely several years ago, like decades ago, a couple decades, maybe even a decade ago. This idea of being a spunky counselor, being able to help people find their true identity was something that was unheard of. If you were going to a therapist for your queerness, you were going to get fixed to remove
Yes.
it. And so with that experience or with that the view of the world, I'd be curious to know what has made you decide to become this counselor. Have you had some kind of experience that said, you know what, never again will these people have to experience that?
Actually, how much time do we have here? Because I feel like I have so much to say about that. It, of course, like it's actually a blend of like my personal lived experience as well as my professional training. And let's start off with professional training. Like the way I was trained, it's like some of you folks who might have heard the name Freud, and he is actually like hailed as the father of psychology.
Yeah.
And I think all the way from him to this day, like we have evolved so much. So I feel like my training at least is very much like let's distance, like I'm the professional, you're the client. And like it's almost like, and I'm like, so how much of my humanity can I still show up, like in therapy setting? Because I noticed like clients seem to feel more connected with me, or I also feel more connected with clients when I can just like use my hands to gesticulate like certain issues and stuff. Or if I laugh out loud, and even like my intonation and my pitch, like you
Yeah.
heard me like speaking right now, whereas like in my training, like I was taught to be very calming and grounding and this and that. It doesn't align with me. And that's why I'm like, I mean, like, yes, like there are like definitely some ethics and some skills that I do still retain wholeheartedly in my practice right now. But I am not sure how much of it is like, as queer people, we goes against the grain. We want to like live on our own terms. And I'm not saying about like, oh yeah, like go and steal from your neighbor and like do bad shit to other people. Like
No.
I'm not talking about that. It's just like more so claiming what is inside of you and living it out outwardly, unapologetically, wholeheartedly. And the way I practice, it's very consistent with how I live out my life as well. So I guess it's just more so like, why do I? This is actually one of my most commonly asked questions. Like, my current clients who have seen a few counselors before, or even first timer who had this whitewashed ideas of what therapy is, like that
Hmm.
grounding and like very distancing, and they were so shocked that I'm like myself, I'm lively, I'm like, yo, what's up, kind of thing, like
Yes,
what's
you were the
up?
spunky counselor. They're like, hey, what's going on? Hello.
Yeah,
Like,
like dish
look,
out the tea,
yes, I'm human just like you. I think that's the message that it brings. Like, bring
yeah,
your whole self to work. I'm doing
yes,
that, but also maintaining some professional boundaries.
yes,
And it's possible to
exactly.
do that. It's a really great demonstration of being able to do that in the workplace too. You can be
Hmm.
your authentic self in the workplace that's showing up with your queerness and
Hmm.
having your identity. And so, with that, and this desire to show up authentically and helping other people, like you walk the talk. It's really important to be able to do that. So these older clients who come in, young adults, let's say 24 and up, those people, do you find that they might struggle with being accepted in the workplace, or just acceptance period, or just being able to make friends and connections? What are some of the top reasons people come see you?
I would say it's confusion over like navigating themselves in the world, because their inner experience is kind of somewhat clashing with what they see on the outside, what their parents told them, how things are supposed to be, what media are like promoting a certain lifestyle or a certain point of view and stuff. So I feel it's just reconciling the many intersectionalities of our identities. I would say like that's been the running theme of what I am noticing in my practice within this past like several years.
Yeah, it sounds really common, but not just among queer people, but among people in general who are really looking for a sense of identity. But there's a certain demographic that comes to you specifically, the queer folks like myself. They come to you for understanding in that particular space. Like, is there a a let's say a gap in between where those people can find services? Because let's say, look, I've been to therapy and I have been to therapists that don't quite relate and understand me, that didn't understand me, and I was just not able to receive any of the information that they shared with me. It was really difficult to connect with them. And so these queer people that come to you, and I mean, what is the real big piece that's a connection there for you? How do you create that connection for them?
I think that's where actually, if we're talking about connection, that's where I am a big champion of personal branding and marketing because I noticed a lot of counselors wanting to get into private practice and a lot of the bios, and granted folks, this is where I started as well, like of course I took inspiration from what I've seen like have existed around me, and I thought that was the standard. I thought that was like the status quo of how I should present myself to the world as this professional licensed counselor, like LMFT for those of you in the US. Though along the way I learned that, hey, like I am not run of the mill generic counselor who are a best fit for everyone. And
Hmm.
that's where I was also introduced to the concept of personal branding and have just been connecting more so with like people from different industries, like photographers and copywriters, business strategists, SEO, like just you name it, like just professionals from different fields of work where I feel really nourished and actually it was really transformative, I guess, like being surrounded by them and learning about the different facets of doing business. And I would say that one of the factors that has helped me connect initially with clients is from my personal branding and marketing. Like last year, I decided to invest in a good quality like branding photography and having like a short intro video made as well. And in the process of deciding whether or not to like jump all in that, because that was a huge part of my income as well that I reinvested into my practice,
Right, right.
of course always with the hope of like reaching like my target demographic as well. And
Yeah. So, with that said, I mean, it is all about personal branding. And let's shift the conversation towards the confidence, because that's what we're here for, to talk about confidence. There's all of these pitfalls. Life says you can't do it this way, family says it, society says you can't do things this way, you can't do things that way. How do you give your clients or help your clients discover confidence and being able to go out there and experience the world as they want and speak their truth?
yeah, definitely it all actually start with them where they're at right now. Like, for example, if we are talking about the confident in coming out and living out their personal identity as queer, for example, my my job is not to fix you because there's nothing to fix.
Right.
What needs to be tweaked is just what is actually happening, what is causing that hesitance and that confusion, that overwhelm, that frustration over this newfound realization that you might be queer, for example.
Oh, you might, not even certain, but you might be.
Yeah. And that's actually one thing that I always tell to people, like, hey, like when we do personal exploration, as much as you do know, because it's on my website, you can see it left, right, and center that I do personally identify as queer. Though if you come see me, my goal is actually not to convert you as queer. My job is to help you explore, like, what does it mean to be queer? What do you see being queer is about? Because like, and also like, how does living it out looks like? And even for me, like my own personal exploration, it took me several years before I can say with confidence today that, hey, I feel comfortable living in my own skin and living, like having aligned between what is inward, I get to show it outward.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
wonderful. And starting where you are and being able to work from there, building confidence along the way. Because I mean, this didn't happen overnight for you, did it? No.
Actually, not at all. That's what kind of really sparked my passion to get into this work, to be honest, like because it was extremely confusing for me in the beginning because I used to identify as a very devout Catholic. And there's just a lot of like baggage in there and a lot of elements that are like a lot of like mishmash, misalignment that
Oh
has
yeah.
piled up over the years. And I never really look at it. And then bada bing, bada boom, there's an eruption happening, like
You
a few.
have to. There's like no other. You have to look at it, and that story is very similar to mine in the sense that I grew up in this religious place, and I really, really just didn't want to be othered. I just didn't want to be othered, so I was going to be the best of the whatever the society has told me I needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, bleh. I didn't like that much either, and it was just so much to unpack, so much to
Hmm.
unpack.
Definitely. I think that was actually the word I was trying to find. Like, there's actually so much to unpack about your personal identity because like you and I both identify as someone of color, and for me, I grew up in a religious conservative collectivistic place, so that adds another layer of like intersectionality um right there,
Yes, yeah, definitely, and it is. And there are so many. It just being queer is not your full identity. It's not my full identity. Rather, there are so
Yeah.
many other pieces that go along with it. Because I've met queer people who might be religious, or I've met queer people who are working in spaces in which I don't, or have different religious affiliations, or different income brackets, or maybe they're a different color. And so being able to be myself around those people have been difficult too. I've always felt like I'm just not queer enough, as people would say, because as I am a trans man, you really wouldn't notice unless I mentioned something to you about it. And I don't have brightly colored anything. I just kind of like to, well, I do have a bright kind of orangish hoodie, peach hoodie. I love it to death, but I'm not so wow in your face and glitter everywhere. Is that what queerness is?
So that's exactly what I will help you explore, or what I help clients explore, to be honest, because like I personally, while we're at it, actually, like I personally see queerness as I'm not cis, I'm not hetero, and I'm not like I don't exist in a box. I create my own, like categories. I get to like make my own shot in life. Being queer means being unique and not mainstream for me personally. How about
Mhm.
you? How do you actually see or define your queerness?
That's a really good question because I just defined it as not being straight. And, and there's a gender mix here too, but
Yes.
not being straight is the thing that I use to identify queerness. It's a completely, for me, it's completely involved in the sexuality and the attraction of the other person.
Hmm. Whenever I hear that word, I always make a joke like, oh yeah, like I'm not straight because I'm so darn twisted on the inside.
I love that. I'm going to keep that and take that with me.
Take that.
I'm
Like take
I'm
it all
twisted on
with
the inside. Everybody. Just so you know. Yeah. But that's the way I define it. And I think about it that way. And anything that's extra, I used to, when I first transitioned, I had really wanted to be a part of this queer space too. But then I find that, oh, I make too much money, or I do this, or I behave this way. I didn't quite fit in what I saw as queer spaces. And again, for me, back in the day, queer spaces look like lots of glitter, lots of earrings, makeup on masculine presenting people, and so forth. But I identify as queer, but that's those aren't just habits. Those aren't habits or hobbies that I keep, and that's I suppose for that for me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like, I guess even for me, I personally, actually, while you were talking, I am just reminded of like, hey, like I feel like as queer people, we actually get, we can like take the opportunity to actually define life in our own terms, because
Yeah,
I feel the whole thing about cis hetero, and if you're in high school, you have boyfriend, girlfriend, then you should get married and have kids, la la la. I feel like there's almost like the life trajectories of what society thinks you should do, and you almost on the inside sabotage yourself and thinking that there's something abnormal about you if you don't, if you're still single at the age of like mid 30s or mid 40s and you can't find your partner, this and that, or if you don't happen to like guys, like yeah, even like I think some folks who identify as bisexual might also get confused and feel whether they are queer enough, or at least that certainly was me a few years ago. I did really question my queerness and almost gaslight myself whether like was I just confused, or was I just like going through this like big self exploration journey, like mid 30 crisis kind of thing, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I like what you said right there, is that we get to define what queerness is. Everyone gets to define what it is to them and how it shows up, how it manifests in their own reality. I think that's a very powerful takeaway, is to remember that. So, the spunky counselor, Nita, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm sure some of my audience is going to want to follow you off stage, off this stage, to wherever you are. So, can you tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, I see that you had like this flickering like website thing, like Nita Agustin Counseling, or also you can just type this Spunky Counselor. I also have that link redirected to this main website. And for those of you who are on Instagram, come check me out at the Spunky Counselor. Thank you so much for popping it in. And I always welcome like people DMing me if you have any questions and stuff. Can't do therapy over text, but if you just, have some quick follow-up questions, this and that from this interview. I'm also on TikTok, but I'm not that active there. Um,
Not yet, right? Not yet. You'll eventually get more active and hang out on TikTok. TikTok is not therapy, and neither is Instagram, LinkedIn. Having a conversation with her, sitting down, having a conversation is therapy. So just keep that in mind. Even though you might get some really great nuggets, I recommend that you go ahead and follow them, her. I like to just say both of them because I think it's fun. On LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. All right. Nita, thank you so much for being here today. I loved having this conversation with you. We'll talk again soon.
yes, thank